Okay, so the question is, how did I get interested in fish or my career path? And, I think that's a little bit of a long, winding story and path for me personally. There are certain people who had grew up always being interested in marine science, and I always enjoyed the ocean, but it wasn't something where, from age 3 or something, I knew I wanted to do this. So there's a lot of different influences. I think one thing is my dad is really into hiking and outdoor activities. That was a thing that he's passionate about and he shared with me and my brother. So I think that had a large influence. Another thing is I had a sixth grade teacher who showed us a movie about basically destruction of the Amazon rainforest and its impact on climate. And that was something that also kind of caught my attention and kind of made me realize that humans are really having a big impact on nature. And I started thinking about as a kid what I could do about this and what we could do as a society to prevent climate change, which is tied to things like rainforest destruction. And the best answer I could come up with is if a lot of kids like me grow up and become scientists, maybe collectively we can find solutions. In terms of like more specifically focusing on marine science, I think that kind of was really influenced by an internship that I had at NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. During that internship, I had the opportunity to go on a research cruise into the Gulf of Mexico, leaving from Key West, where I was on a boat for 2 weeks collecting samples. And it was just such a unique experience that was beyond anything I had ever done before. And I just thought it was fascinating. And that was really kind of the thing that connected me to like deciding, before that I was interested in careers in environmental science. That was the thing that got me to be a marine scientist. Okay, so the question is, what is my educational background? So I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to Smith College as a undergraduate. That's a women's college, and my degree was actually in cultural anthropology, so a really different field, and environmental science. So that does show you can kind of sometimes come from different backgrounds and end up doing marine science. I then went on to get a master's degree. I did that at University of Rhode Island in their Graduate School of Oceanography, and that master's was in biological oceanography. I then did a PhD also in biological oceanography, and that was at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, which is part of the University of California, San Diego. So where do I work now and what is my title? I am a professor at East Carolina University, and I'm in the Department of Biology there. My title is assistant professor, and more specifically, my research at ECU focuses on fisheries biology. The question is, what is the focus of my work? So as I just mentioned, I focus on fisheries biology. More specifically, my lab focuses on kind of a couple subfields in that. So we look a lot at early life history of fishes. So that's when fish are eggs, larvae, or juveniles. And we also look at their spawning behavior. And that's really important because basically many fish can produce 1 million eggs, but only 2 of those eggs will often survive to become adults. And it's not well understood what controls some of those processes influencing the survival of fish. So that's one of the questions that we're trying to figure out is what controls basically the survival of fish when they're going from that egg stage all the way up to adults. And we look at this specifically with regard to oceanic processes that affect them and climate. A big focus of our lab is actually changing seasonality with climate in the land as well as in the ocean. A lot of things are kind of moving so that spring is happening earlier in the year. We're studying whether this is happening in the ocean and what does it mean for ecosystems and food web. So what helped me get to where I am today? So I think I talked a little bit about this in terms of what got me interested in kind of my research, but I think like a big influence was having parents who were into doing outdoor activities and cared about nature and conservation. So that was definitely an influence. I think another thing that I mentioned in passing but did not talk about in depth is I did this internship at NOAA, and then I went back to work there for 2 years in between my undergraduate degree and master's degree. And I had a mentor who, at that point, really had a large influence on me. Her name was Donna Turgeon. So she was, I think, one of the first people to get a degree in marine science as a woman at University of New Hampshire. So she was definitely a pioneer, and she was my supervisor and took me under her wing and really encouraged me to go on and pursue education in marine science and pursue a career in that field. I think that that was really important, having a role model, and also in her particular case, seeing a role model who was a woman who was very well rounded. So, in addition to being a scientist, she also was an athlete and an artist. So, she had all these talents, and I was just so impressed with how she balanced all these different parts of her career and her life.